So it's a very warm welcome today to the Global Sports Channel to Mr. David Bowden. David, how are you?
Fine, keen, fine, nifty, and dandy, all of the above. How about that?
There we go. And I should be saying aloha to you because you're coming to us all the way from beautiful Hawaii today. Is that right?
Yes, mate.
You've done your homework. You've done your homework. That's good work.
Oh yeah, man.
So for the sake of all our beautiful listeners and viewers around the world, whereabouts in Hawaii are you exactly?
Well, I live in Captain Cook.
Captain
Cook. Right on the corner coast there, you know. Yeah. And like I say, I've been here about 16 years. I was just traveling one summer and happened to land in Kona and fell in love with it. And I stayed, you know. Yeah.
We were just talking before the show about that beautiful part of the world, and it's a magical place. It's a spiritual place, isn't it, Kona?
It really is. It really is, you know. Yeah. Of the 13 terrains we have in the world, Kona has 11 of them, you know.
Yeah. And I love the way you can go up the volcano and play in the snow in the morning, and then you can go surfing in the afternoon down at the beach, right?
That's it.
How many times have you done the Ironman triathlon there in Kona?
Zilch, zero. You know, when I was in college, I had a political science instructor, and he would always throw a word up against the wall, you know, to freshmen, and that word was asceticism. Okay.
Yeah.
Asceticism means extreme self-torture. That's what Ironman is. I've done 20 marathons, you know, and after I finished 26.2, man, I'm done. You know, yeah, I'm finished, man. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say you're a sub 3 hour marathon man, so an Ironman would be pretty easy work for you.
Yeah, you know, for the marathon, but that swim and the bike, oh man, that'll fry you, man. You know.
So do you go out there on race day in October and support the athletes? Is it something that you get behind?
I do. In fact, I work with Ironman Village and that kind of thing many years, you know.
Fantastic.
Always a part of it, finish line somewhere, you know.
Yeah. Because
these amazing athletes, you know, to run that distance and then ride and then, oh man, swim. Yeah, it's a lot, man. It's a lot.
Well, just to get to Kona is quite a journey, isn't it? Because people have to qualify all around the world to participate in the World Championships, and it's a sought-after event. To actually just make it to the starting line is a big thing these days, isn't it?
It really is. It really is, you know.
Yeah.
And even though it was postponed this year, you know, you still had Iron men and women from all over the world still coming in and just, you know, doing some training, you know, and that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plenty of Aussies and Kiwis get over there and make their mark in Kona. That's for sure, right?
Oh, most definitely. There's a Aussie who won Ironman. I want to say 2016, 15. I can't think of his name, but he just ripped it, man. You know.
Is that Craig Alexander? Was it Craig Alexander?
Craig Alexander. That's who it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did some photo shoots with him because my ex and I, we had a modeling talent agency.
Okay.
So we went out on the lava rocks and just did photo shoots for a while, you know. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yes. So was it.
Now, before we get into the show proper today, I've got to offer you the opportunity to dedicate the show to someone special in your life. So who would you like to dedicate your interview show to today?
I'll dedicate it to my daughter, Deidre David Bowden. She works for Apple in Atlanta.
Oh, beautiful. You know. Okay. Deidre. How old's Deidre these days?
Deidre is 38.
38. Okay. Well, Deidre, this is a beautiful dedication going out to you from Coach. And you guys can sit down and listen to this together afterwards. That'd be a nice treat, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Now, talking about sport, we have a lot to talk about. So let's go back to when you were a young boy. What got you interested in sport? And what was the first sport you started playing when you were a young boy?
A very interesting question. You know, as a tiny tot growing up in Tampa, Florida, we were just all over the place, you know. And I was asthmatic as a kid. And asthma is something that you don't wish on your worst enemy. So consequently, my mother would have to put me out on the porch in the dead of winter in order to breathe, okay? And I was sharing this with David this morning. And what happened during that process, I would get checkups, you know, my bronchial tubes was all stuffed up. So my 9th grade year, a gentleman by the name of Billy Reed, God bless his soul, he was one of my high school coaches. He saw me in the hallway. He says, come out for football. My mother didn't want me to play football, you know. So I had the rules, so I went on out. So we started running, and that kind of thing. So I go back to the doctor for a checkup. And he asked me, what have you been doing? I said, well, I'm on the football team. I'm running. He said, well, keep doing what you're doing because you're keeping your bronchial tubes open, you know. Yeah. So that's what I share with kids because, you know, kids are, you know, asthma is so debilitating, you know. And that was one way of me sort of kicking it to the curb just by getting out and just ventilating myself, you know. And I tell people I was literally running for my life when they saw me running all these marathons, you know.
Yeah.
I want to breathe. Yeah, it was that kind of situation, man. You know?
Yeah, wonderful. So what was the goal? Did you have a goal back in the day to when you were a young boy to be a football star? Was that kind of the dream that you started off on?
Well, I mentioned Billy Reed. Billy Reed was my high school baseball coach, football coach. And Billy was such a dynamic coach. He had 11 guys in the majors at one time. Dwight Gooden, Gary Sheffield, Floyd Youmans, all of those guys grew up right in the neighborhood in Tampa, Florida. And they played at Cyrus Green right across from the projects where I lived, you know. So we grew up playing baseball, okay? Now, having said that, during that time, Frank Robinson, Vader Pinson, they would come to Florida for the Grapefruit League. And, you know, segregation was big time, so they had to live in our community. So we would see Frank Robinson, Vader Pinson, Lou Brock, all these guys on the corner, you know, just at one of our friends' place, and we would just talk to them. They would come to our banquets, you know, they would come to our games, you know. So that in itself, you know, lifted all the younger guys up to want to, you know, make a difference in their lives, you know. Yeah, that's how it started. And on this running thing, played football, and coach saw that I had the skill for basketball, so he wanted me to be a point guard, okay? Okay, I did that. So track season, he knew I had lungs, so he asked me to run the mile, okay? Now, he knew I was a pitcher, you know. So I did 4 sports in 1 year, you know.
Wow.
I never did that. Yeah, it was just year round, you know. And that's the way it was, but it kept me fit, you know, and my grades were good. So my mother, my family, my father, everybody just went along with the program, you know, yeah.
So tell us about the relationship with your coach, because I guess that was a very influential part of your upbringing and probably something that stayed with you all through your own coaching career was that first impression you had from your first coach. Is that right?
Oh, most definitely. You know, I implement the same things he did for me. You know, I used to, well, at Boyd Anderson High, where I was teaching school, I taught in the inner city of St. Louis prior to moving back to Florida. But I would always really target kids who are mischievous, just to get them involved in something to burn that energy so that, you know, they can see that they can be more than just hanging out and talking yang and all that kind of stuff, you know. So I would interface with them, no matter where it was. I would interface with them and just try to get them involved in something, you know. Yeah,
it's such it's such an important aspect, isn't it, of a sport? Is both what you've already mentioned, the role models of other players, as well as the coaches. Okay. It's such an influential thing on young kids to be around those people, to watch what they do, how they behave, how they act. A lot of it rubs off, doesn't it?
It does, you know, positive begets positives, you know, and that was my thing, you know, just giving them something good that they can hang on to. And ironically, you know, in talking with parents, you know, I love to involve parents in the whole situation, you know, and parents would always say to me, Coach, I know where my son is when he leave you, you know, because he's he's at home regrouping, not in the streets, not on the corner, you know. But yeah, you know, it was good.
What were a couple of the biggest lessons that your coach taught you as a human being as well as a sports person?
Don't quit.
Mm-hmm.
Don't quit. Don't never, ever, never quit.
Mm.
Stay in the game. Stay in the game. You know, yeah. This basic rules, you know, that it's easy for a young person to hang on to something like that and just try to give it their all, you know. Yeah.
Was it a matter of keeping things simple? Was that another part of the philosophy?
Keeping it simple.
Yeah.
Keeping it simple, you know. And, you know, the work ethic, he had such a work ethic, you know, no matter what sport it was, you know, training was a part of it, you know, and you had to show up, you know, that's the main thing. You got to show up, you know, and never did miss practice, you know, always was there, you know, just trying to suck up all the knowledge I could, you know, about whatever event it was that I was going to participate in.
What out of those sports that you did, you said you did 4 sports that year. What one was your favorite? Did you have a favorite?
Now, that's a good question. Football was already sold. Okay. Like I said, we had these major league ball players in our community. And Cincinnati had looks at with all the major league teams in Florida when they would do their training there. And we had a baseball game. They would come out and sit and watch. The scouts would be there. So, you know, I had an option as a senior, either sign with the Redskins or, you know, Cincinnati. And there was several, Brooklyn Dodgers. There was several teams that was looking at me, you know.
Yep.
And I go back to the fact that at that time, 1966, football was sold. That was the way to go. Everybody wanted to play football, you know. So I chose that route, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're talking about the Redskins specifically, and there was a pretty big crossroads for you in your life after the Redskins. What happened there?
Well, after I got waived from the Redskins, I went to New York. Andy Roberts-Stelly, you might remember that name. He was a defensive end with the New York Giants. He called, and I went up to New York and finished the season there. And I had my degree. So when the season was over, I said, well, why don't I go to the Board of Education and see if I can be employed, you know, get a job teaching. So sure enough, my credentials, I got a job, you know, PS 25 in Brooklyn, you know. But anyway, during that time, the Vietnam War was really blowing up, you know. So they wanted me to take my physical. So I just jumped a flight back to Atlanta. My roommate in college, he lived there. So I had my physical transfer from Tampa to Atlanta. I ended up taking the physical in Atlanta. And quite natural, I passed it. But, you know, there's some principals of schools who wanted me to teach and coach. So every year they would write me that occupation of deferment, you know. And so consequently, I just started teaching. I tell people I just got a real job, you know, and that's the way it was, you know. I taught 10 years in the inner city of St. Louis, you know. Right. And yeah, that was very interesting, very, very interesting. The reason why I said it was interesting, it was just so much talent in the inner city. And I remember back in 1988, I coached the Ford Community School basketball team, and there was a team over in East St. Louis by the name of the St. Louis Zips. Now, the Zips would play halftime at NBA games. I mean, this gentleman, he was a millionaire over in East St. Louis, and what he did, he picked the cream of the crop from the surrounding schools and brought those young athletes together. And I mean, the miniature Harlem Globetrotters and that kind of thing. Yeah. And after seeing that, being as competitive as I was, and I had a group of kids in the inner city who was gung-ho, I called the gentleman who was the coach. I said, hey, why don't you all come over and play our team? You know, they've been at it. They came over, and there was not a seat. I mean, people were standing in the rafters, you know.
Wow.
We beat them by 1 point.
Oh.
You know. Boy, yeah, it was a cliffhanger. But having said that, there's a young man who came off of that team by the name of David Thurkill.
Uh-huh.
I'm in Fort Lauderdale back in the late 80s and watching NBA Finals with the Lakers and the Celtics.
Uh-huh.
And the commentator said, in come David Thurkill. I said, David Thurkill? And I hadn't been in St. Louis for 15 years. I said, yeah, I know that name. So as he stood up, I saw his face. At that time, I think David was 6'7". You know, he went to Bradley University, you know, and played his college ball there and came out in the Celtics signed him. And I talked with David, maybe 6 months ago, and he's back in St. Louis, and he's doing guest speaking at the high schools and that kind of thing. Quite natural. He went into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
St. Louis, he sent me a booklet of all the basketball players in St. Louis. JoJo White was one of the first ones who actually rose out of there. But it's just so many it's a basketball haven out there, man. You know,
I bet. Yeah. Was that Larry Bird's team? Yeah, right. The Celtics. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was the same year that Larry Bird's team played the Lakers, right?
Right.
That was a massive series. I remember watching that as a little kid in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So
it's good to see these develop and go on and find themselves, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did coaching specifically come onto your radar? What was your first foray into becoming a coach?
I guess drawing on what my high school coaches, you know, gave me, you know, I always say he gave me a book of rules and a bag of tools, you know, to go out and do things with kids, you know, and just shared my knowledge and, you know, being a student of the game, no matter whether it was baseball, basketball, track and field, you name it, swimming, you know, I would do the work. I would read, you know, if there's something that, you know, we didn't understand, you know, we would read up on it, you know. I managed to, a lot of my kids that I coached, especially when I got to Boyd Anderson in Fort Lauderdale, a lot of them got scholarships. They go off and then they come back and they coach with me, you know, and that kind of thing. So that strengthened the program even more. So it was sort of like a hand-me-down thing, but, you know, good structure that kids can draw and develop on, you know. Yeah.
But coaching was a side hustle, wasn't it? Because you were a teacher first, and that was paying the bills, and you took on coaching as a side hustle.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
And was it track athletes that you started coaching first?
Yeah, it was track athletes in St. Louis. Well, I coached there at Bass. I did everything in St. Louis because I was the only PE teacher. But having moved to Fort Lauderdale, I started coaching football. And after a few years coaching football, a cross-country position opened up. And at that point, I was running marathons. And I said, you know, I'm kind of tired of seeing these kids sacrifice their bodies, you know. So I started coaching cross-country. And we developed I think we had over 50-plus individual state champions in cross-country and track before I left there. And it was a solid program. In fact, Mike Frater was a part of that.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, you did okay with him, huh? He turned out all right.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike, I tell you, what a story, what a story. But he was just so disciplined. He and his brother Lindell. Oh my God, Lindell went to what school did Mike go to? Anyway, they went to the same college,
Yeah, yeah.
And I would see Lindell would come back to Fort Lauderdale, and they would train together.
Yeah.
And just to see the two brothers, it was just like, ah, man, they work together so well, to develop each other, and that kind of thing.
I was really impressed in talking to Mike, and one of the things that really came out was his work ethic and how hard he was prepared to work to get to where he got to.
Yeah.
Did you see that in him in the early days? Did you see that work ethic?
Yeah, when Mike came to Boyd Anderson, he was on crutches.
Right, yeah, because he had an injury. Yeah, that's right.
An injury, And my sister, who's an extremely good writer, she went to University of South Florida. Mike came out here and stayed with me about a month. And I took him to every school I could possibly take him to put him in front of kids, Even HPA. Do you know HPA, Hawaii Preparatory School?
No,
it's
I don't.
way up in the mountains, up in Waimea. Okay. The athletic director called me because Mike, we had done interviews on radio and paper, so they saw he was in town. So the athletic director calls his coach, can you bring Mike up to HPA? I said, well, why not? So we go up there, and unbeknown to Mike and I, there are students from Jamaica there.
Oh
my God. To see a young man bigger than life from their homeland come in and speak. Boy, they hung on Mike's every word. Every word came out of his mouth. Afterwards, it was just, old home week. I mean, it was just such an exchange. Yeah, that's something Mike will never forget because, we were totally surprised.
That's a beautiful story. That's a beautiful story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was so polished. I put him in front of CEOs out here, man, Hilton, just that they wanted to talk to him, because what he and Usain and Safa Powell, what all these guys had done, man, and the Beast, Johan Blake, Nesta Carter. Yeah. I mean, what talent, man, what talent.
That was the dream team, wasn't it? That was the dream team.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So tell me, what were some of the early lessons that you experienced as a coach? So I'm talking about your own lessons that you learned. What are some of the things that perhaps you did that you thought, hey, I've got to change this about the way that I coach, or were you just naturally good at it from the beginning?
Well, I tell you what happened. Because I was very active, what I would do, literally, I would do my workout before school, okay? And I would trickle down what I was doing, prepping for a marathon, and transcend it into the kids, and even with my diet, fruit, vegetables, and grains. Now, I used to get calls from parents, say, Coach, I cooked this steak here and he don't want to eat meat. Say, but what happened, the parents saw that their times was improving.
Yeah.
What I'm saying? So they jumped on board,
I bet they did.
Win-win. It was a win-win, and it was all about trial and error, and my thing in coaching young athletes, no matter what age, to keep them out of the injury zone. Yeah. And there's so many coaches out there just push. You got to know when to back off on the young ones, and let their bodies bounce back, and that kind of thing. So we were very fortunate. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to ask you about the whole concept of recovery and whether you're a big proponent of recovery days and giving athletes time off.
Oh yeah. We do recover. We recover to get the spry back in the legs, In fact, when our training routines was in preseason, I began to send the kids to North Carolina so they can run the hills and that kind of thing during the month of July. So when they came back for cross country, you know, they were good to go, you know. But another thing that I did do, being in Fort Lauderdale, I would once a week, I had a van. We would go to the ocean and get in the water by waist high and just ease a jog in the water to get the spry back in the legs, you know. And we did that for years, you know. And, you know, it worked extremely well. Now, having said that, when I got out here in Hawaii, you know, I was telling my first coaching clinic was in Kauai, Waimea High School. So I said to to one of the coaches, I said, yeah, you know, I was telling him about my routine. He said to me, say, Coach, you know, you can't take the kids to the ocean here. The ocean is too unpredictable.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Those waves to come up and take you right on back out with us. So, you know, we never did do that, but, you know. Yeah. But the weight room, you know, we did that to, you know, to, if nothing else, strengthen, you know, the legs and upper body, you know, so they'd have a strong structure, you know. Yeah.
So back in the day, when you were focusing on your athletes on a certain sport, did you get tips from other sports in terms of technique and training methods? Did you start to adopt things that other sports were doing?
Always a student of the game. Always, you know. Say, for instance, I go back to Arthur Lydia, you know. I picked Arthur's brain because he coached Peter Snell.
Yeah, exactly.
And Peter Snell was Olympian and that kind of thing. So I used to talk with Arthur quite frequently about his training routine, you know. Any noted coaches, whether it be Europe, wherever it was, you know, if I came in contact with him, you know, we would share information. We would always go to University of Florida for the Florida relays because I knew it was such a haven of coaches and athletes that participated in the Florida relays. And you see kids growing up on the spot, you know, the stadiums are packed and that kind of thing. And it's just so much knowledge there, you know. And, it was amazing. But yeah, we share it. You know, Dennis Mitchell is one that I talked to. Maybe you heard of Dennis Mitchell.
Sure have.
He's an Olympian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maurice Green, you know, yeah.
So what about sports science and sports psychology? They've come along in leaps and bounds over the last decade or so, big changes in both those areas. How do you look at those things today and wish that you had some of the tools that are available today back in the day? Would you think it made a huge difference?
I think so, but, you know, I guess during that time, you know, using words with young athletes, it was just amazing to the point. I have to share this with you. Just yesterday, I get this call, and there's a young man, his name is Luxon Lambert. Now, Luxon was on 2 cross-country state championship teams and 2 track and field at Boyd Anderson in Fort Lauderdale. So he calls, and he leaves this message. And I clicked on the message, and I said to myself, man, did I leave this message? Yeah. This guy had emulated every word, you know. I used to tell him, you know, and I had to give him kudos because I thought it was me. And he just absolutely amazing. Just blew my mind, you know. Yeah, but I got a chance to talk with him, and he's in LA. He has his businesses going and that kind of thing. But yeah, he threw me for a loop on that one, you know. But yeah, just things that we shared with them about how to win, you know, being a good sportsman, you know.
Yeah.
And one thing, cheaters never profit. That was one of my slogans, you know. We're going to do it all right. Work hard, win easy. Yeah. That was our philosophy, you know, and that kind of thing. So we put the work in, and consequently, we won. And speaking of cross country, because back during that time, there wasn't a whole lot of black kids running cross country. And in I think that was 97, we won the Florida State Championship in cross country, and we were invited to this regional meet. And teams came from well, Florida up to North Carolina, all the way over to Texas, into Jacksonville. I think it was Reebok, one of the big shoe companies put it on.
Mm-hmm.
So we go in and we win the meet. Now, I had what? Out of the 7 guys, I had 5 was black kids, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this gentleman, he was a coach out of the backwoods of Tennessee. He came up to me and he says, Coach, thanks for erasing the myth that black kids cannot run cross country distance, you know.
Fantastic.
I had to shake the man's hand.
Yeah.
But, you know, you give kids tools, man, you know, they'll take care of the business, man. You know, you train them up right, they'll take care of the business, you know, yeah. So, you know, those are some of the things that I can hang my hat on and just smile when I think about it, because we did it right, you know, we did it right.
I've got to tell you a little story, because yesterday I interviewed a young Australian boy who's 20 years old, and he's the fastest white teenager in the world over 100 meters.
Wow.
And he's running 10.1 at 20 years old.
I think David told me. Okay, go on. And, yeah.
And it was really interesting because I asked him about the psychology around white man can't run fast. And he was telling me, I'm going to show the world that white man can run fast, and I'm going to go sub 10 real soon, right?
Good on him. Good on him. Yeah.
But you're right. It's across all sport. There's this concept, this myth that certain groups can't do certain things. White men can't jump as well, right?
Right. That's what they say. You know. Yeah.
So you talked about cheating and stuff. So let's talk about that from a coach perspective, because I'm really interested in this. You know, we've seen over the years different coaches and athletes around the world crossing the line, and there's been the ones that have got caught. There's the ones that haven't got caught. What's your philosophy when an athlete comes up to you and says, "Hey, coach, I need to do something extra here to beat these guys"? What do we do?
We get back on the track. We do some extra workouts. You know, we get up early in the morning. You know, and yeah, that's the way we did it, you know. Yeah, we would double train sometimes, you know, in order to get them to the point. But here again, thinking in terms of not pushing the athlete into an injury zone and knowing when to back off and give them that recovery phase, you know, so that they are able to compete at a high level, you know. Yeah.
So what happens when you sit down and you watch the Seoul Olympic Games 100 meters final and you see what happens there? And it's pretty well known these days that most of that field were doing things wrong. So how as a coach do you take that on board and think, hang on a minute, this is not right in my sport. This is not something that's good for my sport, right?
That's correct. That's correct. You know, and we all know that juice work. I never forget seeing Ben Johnson pop up out of the blocks when he was all juiced up. But, you know, here again, training them up right, you know, and you know, once, especially when the kid get into high school, you know, they're out and about, you know, and they can come into some savory characters, you know, and that's when that solid foundation has to kick in to let them know right from wrong and that kind of thing, and just work a little harder, you know, go back to the drawing boards if you lose a race, go back, regroup, train a little harder, you know, and that kind of thing. So that's basically what we focused on, you know. Yeah.
Do you remember one of your athletes called Calvert Lee?
Calvert Lee, yeah.
He loves you.
Calvert Lee. Where did you get that name from?
He loves you. He says, I love Coach Bowden because when I didn't turn up at practice, he would come around to my house and find out where I was.
That's right. That's right. I would knock on the door. His mother would answer and say, Calvert, get out of here. Yeah, it's a lot of them I had to do that way. And you know, it was just a part of it. It was a part of it, you know. Yeah, because, you know, the training, see, we would train early in the morning, you know, especially during the summer, like 6 o'clock. You know, they had to show up at 6 o'clock. You know?
Yeah.
And we would do whatever we had to do, and then I just tell them the rest of the day is yours, you know. And when that light came on and they knew that this was a ticket to ride, you know, to winning, you know, they bought into it, and you know, yeah.
How many times did you have to go round to their houses?
Nah, that's a good question. You know, all the parents knew me now. They knew I would inadvertently show up if they didn't miss practice. I would knock on the door, yeah, because you know, I used to tell them, you know, that bed is not your best friend, you know, yeah.
So this wasn't a big paying job for you. So what was the incentive for you?
Oh no!
What did you truly get out of this? What was your motivation?
The satisfaction of seeing kids grow and develop. And my job, and I would tell the principals, you know, my job is to get these kids scholarships. You know, I would have, oh my God, say for instance, I mentioned Florida Relays would go there because of the coaches, the magnitude of coaches. And coaches would say to me, Coach, you know, we like coming and getting your athletes because we know we're dealing with a finished product when they come to college from your program, because we've sharpened the pencil in more ways than one, you know, psychologically, you know, knowing how to start a race, knowing how to position yourself in the middle of the race, and knowing how to finish a race, you know. So we broke it down. You know, and that kind of thing. Igaloid, you know that name, Igaloid?
No, I don't.
Okay, Igaloid was a coach back in England, way back. And Igaloid, I did some reading on him. And he had workouts. He had one workout where you do 10 quarters. Okay, before practice at 80-second pace. Okay, then do the workout.
Wow.
Okay. Oh yeah. So once we started that, we saw a major difference. You know, yeah, we would have kids that would bow out, wouldn't come to practice, all kind of excuses. But when they saw their buddies who bought in and came and worked out and did it the right way, you know, there were no sims. I mean, they were just passing them. So, you know, they came along with the show. So, you know, it was just one of the things, giving the kids what they need.
Yeah.
You know, grow and develop. You know, yeah.
So was there any one of your students that really surprised you? Like when they maybe started getting coached by you, you were thinking, okay, maybe they're not going to go on and do anything fantastic, but ended up doing something extraordinary. Was there many of those? It was some. And one come to mind, his name was Horace Kelly. And this had to be back in the late 80s, I would think. Horace was a brainiac. And he ran cross, and his brother Abel was a 100-meter, 20-meter, very fast young man. Horace didn't have the speed Abel had, you know, but he was just in there. He fought hard. And I never forget, Horace senior year, I said to Horace, Horace, you know, your time dictate that, you know, maybe a junior college, you know, might be fitting for you. So Horace looked me in the eyes and says, "Oh, that's okay, Coach. I have a scholarship." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to MIT." I said, "What?" I said, "Well, what are you going to major in?" "Biochemical engineering." Right. I'm saying, like, what? You know. Whoa. So right now he owns a business in Shirley, Mass. Yeah. You know. Yeah. And he's also doing work on 5G software. Right. You know? Right. So, you know, those kind of things. I mean, you know, it's just surprising, man. But these kids, you never know. You never, ever know, man. You never know. Yeah. Let's talk about some of the phenomenal athletic achievements that you would have been witness to over the years. And I'm talking about all the amazing things that Usain did over 100 and 200, but also recently what someone like Kipchoge's done with going under 2 hours for a marathon. What do you think of these achievements? Amazing. Absolutely amazing. You know, I don't know what's in the water, but, you know, these guys train. You know, I
I ran the Montreal Marathon. This had to be back in the mid '80s, and there was a lot of Kenyans there, and I began to talk to them just to find out their work ethic, their training routine, regiment. And these guys, you know, they never stop.
Yeah.
They train early in the morning, midday, especially during preseason.
Yeah.
And then in the evening.
Wow.
I mean, they just stacking on, you know. And they had the structure and everything to, you know, to handle that, you know. But just the work ethic, that's what it comes down to, you know, instilling a work ethic in an athlete that, you know, he's just, you know, relentless. He just don't back down, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah.
Now, I warned you today that we're going to talk about New Zealand, and I want to tell you something that might be a little bit interesting, because I have a friend of mine who lives in Brussels in Belgium, and he works for the People to People organization, which you're very familiar with, right? So
yeah.
So tell us how you became attracted to them and ended up going to New Zealand and Australia.
Good story. This is a good story. And believe it or not, I'm doing a coaching clinic in Kauai.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I get this call from the gentleman with People to People. And I was living in Fort Lauderdale. So he says, Coach, you know, we would love for you to take some kids to New Zealand and Australia, you know, to People to People Sports Ambassador Program. I said, well, can I do it from Hawaii? He says, no, Coach, because they're going to have to come from the mainland. You got to recruit from the mainland, you know.
Right.
So I jumped on the flight, flew back into Lauderdale, immediately started calling. And they gave me a list of athletes on the West Coast, you know. Mm-hmm. Started contacting coaches and talking with the athletes and parents, because, you know, they had to fundraise in order to get enough money to make the trip. So they had fundraising program set up. So we got that together. And my first year, I think it's pretty close to 100 athletes.
Wow.
100 athletes, yeah, 100 athletes. We had 4 team leaders and 6 coaches.
Wow. Okay,
so we split the kids up. So we touched down in New Zealand. I never forget this, because as we land at Auckland Airport, we go into the airport, and there's this long strip of tape. Okay, so each athlete had to stand on the tape. Uh-huh. Now, we didn't know what was going on, but we found out that in New Zealand, they don't like foreign soil to come into their country.
That's right.
Had to take the shoes off, wash them down, then put them back on, which was a good thing. So, you know, we learned a lot. We learned a lot. And we all stayed. We had, 2 Greyhound buses that carried us all. Everything was so well orchestrated. Mm-hmm. In fact, I had that itinerary that, you know, they had everything structured, man, you know. Yeah. We had things for kids to do every day. Training was a part of it, you know, and that kind of thing. And then we competed. We competed at, what was the name of this stadium in New Zealand?
Mount Smart?
What?
Mount Smart Stadium in Auckland?
Right. Yeah. And we just, Kelly Tarrington, I think it is. That's one of our stop-offs where, you know, the sea creatures all, you know, it was just amazing. It was amazing.
How old were the kids?
We also went, huh?
How old were the kids that you took?
Age range from 12 to 18.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, we went to Rotorua.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and I never forget, they made me chief of the day because we brought so many kids and athletes, you know, and that kind of thing. And they put on the show for us. They had dinner for us, you know. It was just off the charts, you know. Just met a lot of good people, you know. It was a fun time. And,
did you learn how to do the Maori Haka?
Did the Haka, yeah. In fact, they, you know how they make the grass skirts, you know, out of the leaves. They showed us how to do that. We went through the whole process, man, you know. Yeah, it was an excellent exchange.
What did you think of New Zealand ice cream? Did you try some New Zealand ice cream?
Sure did. Sure did. Absolutely love it. You know,
that's the real thing, right?
Yeah.
That's the real thing,
It's
is New Zealand ice cream.
the real thing. Yeah.
And how did the kids enjoy a trip down under? Because one, it's a long way to go. That's the first thing. But also culturally, it's quite different, isn't it? In terms of laid back,
Yeah.
relaxed lifestyle, right?
Right, right. But here again, I saw kids growing up on the spot. I mean, they were just so enamored, amazed at, you know, the country, you know, and that kind of thing, and how gracious the people were, you know, because we were there, New Zealand 10 days and Australia 10 days. So, you know, so yeah, I did that 3 years in a row, you know, and
wow.
Yeah, they wanted me to go to Europe. I said, no, send me back to New Zealand and Australia.
It sounds
Yeah, so
it sounds to me as if you could be a tour guide for Australia and New Zealand.
most definitely. In fact, there's this group, no longer People to People. I think it's FF group out of, I think they're out of Boulder, Colorado. They called me last year because of the pandemic. They had to, you know, shut it down. So they had read my resume, you know, New Zealand and Australia. And they said, well, we have a couple of places you can go. You can go to New Zealand, Australia, or Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been to Switzerland, but I go back to New Zealand and Australia. You know. Yeah. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed the country, the people. It's just amazing. Man.
Great to hear. Are you still coaching these days?
Yeah, somewhat. You know, the little tiny tots. You know, just keeping them motivated. And with this virtual learning now, see, when I was teaching in St. Louis back in the day, I had 66 kids in one PE class.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Can you imagine that?
No.
But what we were using, I know. We were using, there's a guy by the name of Louis Kidlas. He was a German, you know, and the Turner-Marine Society had a module of PE that they used, and it was all about organization and structure, you know. And with those 60 kids, they would have a dot that they had to stand on when they came out of the locker room, 10 hut, you know, just like military, you know. Now, fast forward to today, with the pandemic and everything, you know, I have 6 kids in one class.
Right,
From
right.
6 to 6, you know. But, you know, it's a different time, space and time, you know. But, yeah.
So what are a couple of the biggest lessons you learned about yourself over your coaching years? What did you learn about you as a human being?
Oh, what did I learn about me? I tell you one thing, that going through the process and ended up here on the Big Island, I found out that there is no finish line. There is no finish line.
Beautiful.
You know, life is about movement. You stay in the game and just keep moving. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Right now, Brother Paul and I, we're pumping iron, you know, and that kind of thing, you know, just keeping it moving, man, you know.
Good man.
Yeah.
Good man. Now, for any young kids watching and listening in today, what couple of pieces of advice would you give to them if they're starting off in an athletic career, they have a dream to go the whole way? What would you say to them right now today?
Well, I guess one of the things I would tell them is nothing worthwhile in life come easy. You know, if you're going to be an athlete and you're going to commit yourself, do that. You know, study your craft, listen to your parents, follow instructions. You know, just simple, basic stuff that any kid can hang on to, and try to do something for his or herself. You know, just simple stuff. You know,
yeah, beautiful. If you didn't do all the coaching stuff that you've done, what do you think you would have done? What would have been an alternative path for you?
You know, I was looking at my high school yearbook. You know, the picture, and you had to give your ambition. And I had said I wanted to be a physical therapist back in the early 60s, you know. And during that time, everybody was just in my class, my graduating class, was programmed to go to college and become a teacher, you know, and come back to the neighborhood and, you know, and train kids. So, you know, it was just one of those things. And then the whole thing began to open up, you know, with the tech fields and that kind of thing. So there were more to reach out to, you know. So with the kids today, you just find what their interests might be, and try to channel them in that direction, you know. It's very important.
Who's been your greatest, or who do you think's been the greatest athlete of your lifetime? Who do you look at and think that person's achieved something absolutely extraordinary?
I look at it's so many, but just to narrow it down, and listening to Mike and having been live streamed into London for the 2012 Olympics, you know, just talking about freighter, Usain Bolt, this guy, you know, he defied everything, you know, and quite natural with his height. And you look at any sport today, you have to be a tree, whether it be tennis, you name it. You know, if you have that height, you're going to excel, and you have the work ethic, you're going to excel, you know. And just that extension now, just being tall and, you know, and have the work ethic to take care of business, you know. But Usain Bolt, he just blew everything out of the water. You know, just amazing. Just absolutely amazing.
Do you think anyone's going to get close to that 200 meters world record? It seems to be so far out there, right?
Yeah, it's out there, but eventually, you know, eventually. Now, you know, another thing I have to share with you, I had a chance to talk with John Carlos and Tommy Smith. You remember that? Was it 68 Olympics? I was here in Kona, and I go to Office Max. They have something printed out, and I see this big mural that they were having copied. It wasn't them. It was a gentleman who was printing it for the conference they were having at the Hilton. Okay? So, man, you know, I've had that picture in my home in Florida, for 20 years, you know. He said, well, both of these guys out at the Hilton. I said, you got to be kidding me. So what I did, I ran home, you know, I go out to the Hilton, and they were doing clinics and conferences and that kind of thing. So, you know, got a chance to talk with him. And, you know, in fact, I have contact with him today, but, you know, because Tommy is in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and Carlos, I think he's LA area, and then he goes to New York. So he's all over the place. But these guys are still making a difference, talking to kids, staying in the community and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
These are the guys that I really admired, you know, I really admired them. In fact, Peter Norman.
Yeah, Peter Norman?
Yeah, they were pallbearers at his funeral.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they,
wow,
you know,
okay.
and because he was on the podium with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I didn't realize that they were pallbearers at his funeral. Okay.
Yeah, so they had so much respect for him that, you know, they flew down to be pallbearers, you know. Yeah.
So my last question today for you is, what do you think of Mike Tyson and these guys coming out of retirement at 50 plus years old to go round again in the boxing ring? What do you make of all this?
You know, kudos to them. Life is about movement. Just move, you know. But you know, you know, I guess it's fun to see them get out there and reminisce. Yeah.
Do you see the shape? You see the shape the guy was in there? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that was scary.
Yeah. You know, Ernie Shavers. You remember that name?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay. Ernie came out with Rayfield Wright. This was what, maybe 5-6 years ago, and they did things with the kids in the community here on the Big Island. And unbeknown to me, Ernie was telling us his story, and he had the strongest punch in at one time. I mean,
yeah,
bar none. You
yeah.
know,
yeah.
you just didn't want to get hit by Ernie Shavers.
Yeah.
And he gave me a picture of him in a fight with Muhammad Ali, and he caught Muhammad going back.
Wow.
You know, but it's very interesting. But yeah, Ernie was he was a hard rock, man. He was a hard rock. You know?
Amazing
but nice
stuff.
guy. Nice guy. Yeah.
Listen, I could talk to you for hours. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to book a ticket to Kona over the next 12 months.
Do
and
that. Do that.
I'm going to come and sit and buy you a Mai Tai at the Hilton Hotel. How about that?
Winner, 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 winner. Okay, bro.
Coach, it's been an honor to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for giving me your time and being a wonderful guest and sharing your great journey with us.
My pleasure. My pleasure as well. Okay.
Stay well, and mahalo. We'll see you soon.
You betcha. Okay. All right.
There we are. Fantastic. Coach David Bowden. What a legend. And what a fantastic conversation it was to have with a man who's changed so many people's lives. And if you didn't realize it throughout the show, I'm sure you will now, that such a humble man who had the impact on changing so many people's lives throughout his journey and is still doing so to this very day. I look forward to the day that I can arrive at beautiful Kona Airport and take a video or a picture of the two of us together and backing up on my promise to go and say hello to him. There we are, another episode from the Global Sports Channel. If you have not checked us out yet, please go to our website at globalsportschannel.com. In addition to the interviews, we have a radio show, we have a blog series, we have lots of other ways for you to engage in sports with us, and you can check it all out there on our website. Don't forget, social media, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, so join us, like us, comment, give us some feedback on the shows, whether you're enjoying them. Who would you like us to interview next? Drop us a note and let us know who you'd like to see on the show, and we will try and make that happen for you. Well, there we go. We've come to the end of another episode. My name is Mark Philpott. Until I see you all again next time, I wish you all a very happy, safe and healthy week ahead. Until then, bye for now.